It's Tuesday, right in the middle of the week. What do you guys think of a guy who's lying in a place like this on a lounge chair and is not on vacation? Yeah, well, in Germany you might think jerk, but normally as a regular person you'd think he's made it. I've got someone else for you who has made it, so I'm not the one, since I'm just lying here for this video and this intro. But Renault has indeed done it. Renault has managed to construct a vehicle for the masses, seemingly that precisely hits exactly what the masses desire from an electric vehicle in every single aspect, regarding the rigidity and all other parameters. But now, I'm here, of course, to find out whether behind this beautiful facade lies a crumbling house of cards or a solid foundation. That's the reason I'm here. And that's why we're going to check out the new Renault Scenic E-Tech in this video, together. And you subscribe to the channel, here we go. And there it is, in this beautiful red, the Scenic E-Tech. Finally, I can test it. I see it as a very, very important car for the market. That's why I spared no effort to come here, even though it almost didn't work out to show you this car. Let's first go over the parameters before we drive, and especially check out this rather unique, indeed exceptional interior for its class. So, Renault has made a very clever move, besides hiring the designer they did for this car, because it truly is a truly remarkable and innovative car in terms of its overall design by offering a wide variety of battery size options to choose from. I'll tell you that in just a moment. First, I just want to show you the car from all around. Renault has such a very specific attitude that gives the car this thing that makes you, the car fits the person who can only afford this car. But the car also suits someone with a villa here, somewhere in Malaga, and then you park this car in front of it, and it still looks great. Not many brands can do that. Yeah, take a look at the front with the LED signature and the main headlight, which, by the way, is adaptive high beam. But unfortunately not matrix. That's a bit of a deduction for this car. But you can live with that, I promise you. So, as mentioned, there are two battery options and therefore two drivetrains. Either you opt for the 60 kilowatt, then you get 160 HP and 280 Nm of torque. Or you might probably say, I desire the more powerful version with 217 HP, which has 300 Nm of torque and also boasts a 87 kilowatt-hour battery. 87 kilowatt-hours just a few years ago, that was reserved for the absolute premium brands only. Audi e-tron, for instance, yes, with 86 kilowatt-hours. Now you've got this battery size in this class already. And who is this interesting for? It's interesting for those looking to completely replace their gasoline vehicle with an electric one, which in this case would be this one here. And with those 87 kilowatt-hours, just how far can you really travel? How far? You'll hear even more about it in the video. There are 4 different trim levels. And this one is the top one, named Iconic. There's another one called Esprit Alpine. It's the first electric car to bear this edition, inspired by the sports car brand Alpine. You see it here, this is the grey one. Personally, I find this grey a bit more exciting, thrilling, because it's very sporty and eye-catching. The deep red color is considered significantly more chic, seen as very elegant and highly sophisticated. There are 7 colors to choose from in total. Here you're seeing the rear version, or rather the rear view. Yes, indeed, the Scenic has really been classified as a van up to now, historically speaking. The same goes for the Espace, of course. It was also a van, and then electrically, they turned this car into such a crossover. I wouldn't call it an SUV, since for me, the definition of an SUV is slightly different. It's become fashionable now to label such things as SUVs in the electric mobility sector. To me, it's not an SUV, but then again, it's no longer the van it used to be either. And it had a significantly large and dedicated fan base. And they might be a bit startled at first, at the very least. But don't worry at all, because in this very video you are going to see, you definitely won't have any issues with space here. The dimensions of the vehicle are at 4.47 meters, quite compact indeed. So it's not exactly a big car, yet the trunk's total volume, which impressively comes in at exactly 545 liters, is surprisingly quite extraordinarily large indeed. That's fair to say. Here you see my suitcase inside, yeah, that's my suitcase. And the funny thing is, it goes really deep in here. That's how you get this trunk volume, which of course might be a bit of a problem for shorter people to reach in, or even for taller people. because of the back position. But otherwise, it's pretty cool because the deeper the trunk, the more you can fit in. Here you can clearly witness it. It's highly expansible from these 545 liters up to, with a total of 1690 liters of volume capacity. Then you might actually discover that you unfortunately have quite an unexpected step inside, which could be a bit inconvenient. And I can't manage this right now. Wait, you've got a step inside, here's the loop, you need to pull it. It's a bit inconvenient with such a loop. I'd prefer a button or maybe even from the trunk that you can do it. And if you fold this down, then unfortunately you've got a pretty unsightly edge here, which simply makes sliding objects through it not quite so easy. That's unfortunately how it is, but it's a large trunk. And hey, for the family, it's top-notch. Next, we proceed to another good news happening right here at the back. Towing capacity is always a topic with electric cars. Many have none at all, while some have a limited one. This one can handle 1.1 tons, making it just 100 kilos short from the ID family, because the IDs from VW or Skoda, basically anything on the MEB platform, have a towing capacity of 1200 kilos. That's really quite good. Additionally, there is an 80 kilo nose weight and also an 80 kilo roof load if you wish to make good use of that capacity as well. So that's on that. Next, the drive. It's located at the front in this vehicle. That essentially means the engine is placed in front, so unfortunately there's no frunk available. Also, it has front-wheel drive, which is, well, somewhat so-so. We'll try that out and see what it means for this car. But you've got all the power at the front, and also, with the large battery option, just to avoid any misunderstanding, no all-wheel drive, but regardless of which option you choose, whether it's 160 or 217 horsepower, you always have the front-wheel drive system available. So exactly, the charging flap and so on and so forth, we're going to thoroughly check that out for you. You have a two-tone roof right here. It is very black. Yes, it is clearly offset once again. I have something very interesting to say about this roof as well. We will do that once we are inside, and for now, let's just take a look at it. It's quite a gem, isn't it? The good one. Unfortunately, we only have it in white right now, so I can't show you the full range of colors. But when you take a closer look at it, it really does have something quite very special, don't you think? Drop in the comments how you find it or which car you think is more beautiful. And now, let's move to the interior. And there, I have some amazing things to report for which I tip my hat. Prices. Must you really forego your upcoming grand vacation to such an incredibly exquisite destination, all because you decided to purchase a Renault Scenic? Not necessarily. I find it quite interesting in terms of price. The starting price is at 41,400 euros and goes up to 52,000. And it'll set you back a bit more if you go for the iconic, the bigger one. You'll start with the Evolution. But if you choose this package, you're only getting the 160 horsepower. Then there's the Techno, just the same as the Esprit Alpine and the Iconic, as was previously mentioned in the discussion. And indeed, if you opt for certain editions, packages, or engines, you automatically get features as standard that aren't included with others. This means it's not like you're tied to that package if you say, I want the Techno, but if you absolutely want the driver assistance package, which is standard only with the Iconic, then you can add it to the Techno. Buying it separately always costs. For instance, this package is 2,600 euros. So, you need to look closely at what's available on this extra options list because there's quite a bit of room to play around with. And if you say I want to recoup some of the cost elsewhere, you could, for example, opt for an alarm system and a coat hanger for the headrest valued at 250 euros, which you then save on something else, namely when charging at home. Unfortunately, Renault, like Mercedes, is not approved for the interface with E.ON. But if you don't drive a Renault, you should check the vehicle finder on E.ON's website. I've just worked it out. If you drive this car, whose consumption I'll reveal later in this video, 20,000 kilometers a year, charging 70% of the time at home, and pay the same electricity price as I do at my place, with IONT at 29 cents per kilowatt hour for absolutely sustainable green electricity, then you get a 10-cent saving by specifying in the app how long you're charging your car. And the longer you charge, the more likely you are to get a 10-cent discount per kilowatt hour. So overnight is always enough. That means 19 cents per kilowatt hour. This means, by implication, instead of 650 euros a year for electricity at home for the consumption what the Scenic E-Tech uses, would you only pay 425? Not bad, right? And with that, as I mentioned, you can afford a car alarm system and coat hangers for the headrest. I'll link that for you down in the description box. Because if your port is approved, then check out. First the vehicle finder, and then, of course, the rate calculator to see how much ION electricity actually costs for you. Because for me, for example, it costs just as much as through my current provider, which is 29 cents per kilowatt hour. If you decide to purchase a French-made car, you really need to understand clearly what you're getting into. There are many things that are better than what you might know from Germans so far, but also a few little things I don't like. And you surely want to know them too, and I'll show them to you now. Let's start by taking a look at the steering wheel, which appears quite stylish indeed. I must say, I genuinely like it a lot. I also like the feel of this steering wheel in the end. Yes, when you touch it, synthetic leather, the shape. The only thing I don't like is this quite dominant plastic airbag cover. It's really, really big, simply because it's big. Okay, for this class of vehicle, plastic, but it's just very dominant. What I really do like, though, is definitely the buttons, having tactile switches here. I can feel exactly what I'm pressing. Especially with the assistance systems on the highway, it's crucial that you can simply feel and hear it. Nicely divided into left for the driving assistance systems, right for the display up here. We'll see that here. You can switch between different display options on the right side, whatever you see here. Please don't mind the average consumption. I measured it in urban areas. You'll see it soon. We've stood here quite long now. And then there's another button here, right here. And when you press down on it, it then switches between the various modes available here. Once we have a digital speedometer, then comes this particular display here. And what I really truly like is exactly this right here. And if you go all the way up here now, you can even click away the right side and have it completely here. Why is that awesome? Well, let me show you, because simply, when you choose a destination that might not be just around the corner, bam, you enter it into the main navigation, hit start, and then you have it right here as well. And that in Google Maps display. Exactly, that's what I want to praise to the skies, wondering why other manufacturers don't do the same. But first, let me show you something else, namely that you have the multi-sense button right here. It's for choosing the driving mode. Then you can switch to sport, visible in red. Then you move on to personalized or comfort. Comfort is, so to speak, blue, which in my opinion is the most balanced option. Then to eco, which is highlighted in green. And you can also configure all these modes differently right here on the main display, deciding that you want maximum driving dynamics, but steering only on medium or soft. You can adjust everything here. Then we're at the beautiful large central display, which is very nicely presented. By the way, with our very own car, in our distinct color, not just merely a placeholder. I think that's really, really beautiful. Well laid out too. I just find it nicely done. It's quick. Here, see the AC drawing power from the battery. Here, you can set up programs for which day you want it to charge or precondition. Then, accordingly, the maximum battery level you would like to have at your wall box, or at the city charging station, or at the fast charging station, whichever it may be. Here you have a hands-free park assist. I've never really been a fan of such systems. It does not necessarily have to be so. And then, there is also the essential point to consider regarding the seats. Then adjust the seats. Noticed? The display is less reflective now. It doesn't necessarily have to be the case, you see. And then, there's also the significant issue with the seats. Then you can adjust the seats here. You must have noticed the display isn't reflecting as much now. I'll get to that in a moment. That's one of the coolest features in this car. You can set the air quality. Driving through a tunnel. In traffic, you can purify the air. Setting automatic recirculation I find really, really nice. Then, my driving. Setting the automatic recirculation I find it very, very nice. Then, my driving. Here you have a listing that shows how you're driving. You can adjust your driving assistance systems right here. Then, active braking, predictive warnings, stuff like that, comfort, adaptive speed limit, for example, showing risk areas, and so on. I always turn off the rear wiper when in reverse. I hate nothing more than that because it gets the car dirty just because I engage reverse, and then here, for instance, the settings. I always remove the rear wiper in reverse. I hate that because it dirties the car just by engaging reverse. And then here, the settings. You can do a variety of things. Yes, including notifications, the usual stuff you encounter in settings, basically. With the small edition, for instance, you only get a 9-inch display, not the big one. That's why I wouldn't really opt for the smaller version, starting at 41,400 euros. Not too keen on that. You've got a Google Play Store, here's YouTube Music, Amazon Music, and even Waze. Already integrated. However, no YouTube video application exists as of now. At least, I haven't found one yet. You can correct me if it can be found somewhere. And of course, there's Google Assistant too. And here's Waze, as already mentioned, podcasts, Google News. However, there is no available application for YouTube videos. At least, I certainly couldn't find it at all. Feel free to correct me if you do find it somewhere, and of course the Google Assistant as well. And here's Waze, as already mentioned, podcasts, Google News. This is exactly what you'll find here. And you can, for example, which I find truly cool, adjust the turn signal sound easily in this car. I find this very, very important for those hard of hearing or sensitive to loud sounds. Then you can just easily arrange it in the way that you simply and truly prefer it for yourself. Here's the cabin, turn signal volume, I'll show that. It's on low now. Do you hear that? Let's go to high. That's much louder, or middle. That's cool. Whoops, activated the wiper. Because the gear selector is located up here, I actually think that's quite good. In my opinion, since driving a Mercedes with this feature here, it's been easy and nice because you can shift gears quickly. And then you have the rear view camera here, for instance. It's a bit of a fisheye effect you can get as well. When we choose this mode, for example, everything gets a bit wider. You can take a look at the front wheels here. Very cool. Thanks a lot, Renault. You can see it at the back too. Here, it's shown again. You can see it in the back too. Here you can see again how it's displayed. And here, you see it just like this. So you can really get a good sense of it. Also, another 360-degree version, so you see, here's a dog or whatever walking around. And check out this graphical speed. And that's exactly the point I want to get to. A word of praise first. Haptic climate buttons are very nice. Firstly, they look beautiful, they're ridged. A word of praise beforehand, haptic climate buttons are really nice. First off, they look good, they're ridged. It's just a beautiful thing. And while you're driving, when you look ahead, you can feel what you're doing down here without having to fumble around on the display. I personally find that really important. And now comes the crowning glory of it all, and that's the Google-based navigation system. I don't get why others don't do this. Let me show you. Okay, Google, could you please navigate me to Ambleham 1 Java? The address is Ambleham 1 Java. Okay, Google, could you navigate me to Ambleham 1 Java? To the address Ambleham 1 Java, please. Okay, that was really close. Okay, Google, can you please navigate me to Ambleham 1 Java? To Ambleham 1 Java. And just look at how incredibly fast that is. Yeah, it's really just Google. So, now we know the route. You could start driving now. Now it's plotting the route, but there it is. 9 charging stops, charging time 5:56. Here, route details. Here you see where you stop, with what percentage you'll arrive, up to how much you'll charge. Blah, blah, blah. He apparently always plans with a 10% minimum. Unfortunately, you can't set how much battery you want to have upon arrival at your destination or charging station. I really would have preferred that. That's not available, but otherwise I really don't want to complain. I simply wish to go ahead with Ionity because I really want to use and depend on the reliability. I might have received a special rate or something like that. Generally, traveling abroad through countries always say farewell to Ionity. To go with Ionity, simply because, well, you just don't know with foreign providers what those columns are, how they're maintained. We notably observed that in my presentation video featuring the Mini Countryman, where I was stationed at this particular unique station, a Portuguese eFazek station, it only delivered 108 kilodollars, and the more your car can charge, the farther you are from your charge peak, and you're just leaving time on the table. It's not very reliable, and since you don't know, that's how I do it. Just a recommendation from me. Of course, on one hand, because Ionity is my partner, but on the other hand, that's why Ionity is my partner, as it's the most reliable, fastest growing charging network. You can drive it anywhere, really, and in Portugal and Spain, they're even covered, unlike in Germany. And you can get the Ionity passport for €6 a month when you go on vacation. You then pay 49 cents per kilowatt hour. And when you return from vacation, you can cancel the Ionity passport and you won't have to pay for it the whole year if you're only going on vacation once and don't really use the fast charger otherwise. So that's that. Let's move on. You can also apply other filters here. You still have additional options, as I mentioned, just unfortunately not the option to specify the percentage you want to arrive at the charging station with. You can search for charging stations. Goodness, how it flickers. What's really happening here then? So you can filter by power capacity. Like for instance, say you might want, I don't honestly know, columns that can efficiently handle 50 kilo, 150 kilo, or even ranging from 350 kilo, and upwards you can filter as well, evidently. And that's quite good. Here you see it, 350 or even more, 150 or more, 50 or more. For this car, 150 or more is enough, because one could argue it's the car's only bottleneck. But that's actually not it. The car is full. I don't need to drive to the charging station now. I can't run it empty today, we're at 97%. With such a huge battery, it doesn't make sense. But it manages 32 minutes from 10 to 80%. It's initially quite daunting, so to speak, when you say, okay, but Volkswagen manages it in under 30 minutes. Impressively. Yes, it has a 77 kilowatt battery, meaning charging takes 32 minutes. It ranges from 10 up to 37 minutes, from 10 up to 37 minutes for reaching 80%. And honestly, 3 minutes, 4 minutes, 5-minute difference, does it really matter on the highway? One might need to slow things down a bit in their mind. It's slower than with a combustion engine either way, but it's cleaner than using a combustion engine too. It can draw up to $150 maximum at a fast charging station. So you can actually use fast charging stations that only offer 150 kilowatt, although the Ionity ones usually provide 350 or even more. I actually managed to hit 366 kilowatts at an Ionity charging station with the Lotus. So that's on that note. And then, of course, what's more with this whole system is that you've got this insane speed. With this Google system. Yeah, so zoom in, zoom out. Sorry about the screen flickering, can't really fix that right now. Might remove my filter here. Wait, no, doesn't work either. All right, so that didn't actually help. So you see the zoom in, zoom out, it really doesn't go any faster anywhere. I might remove my filter briefly. Wait, no, that won't work either. Okay, so that didn't help at all. So you see the zoom in, zoom out, it doesn't work any faster anywhere. So not even with a Tesla can you zoom in like this. It doesn't lag at all, keeps up perfectly. That's just not a thing with Google. Yes, you can make everything very accessible here very quickly. Down here, you've also got this bar. You can pull down from the top again, get this here, and then you can set the brightness to auto or whatever you prefer. And then, on brightness, what I referenced earlier about screen glare. Currently, this particular roof is quite opaque. It's quite matte, in fact. But now, with just this small button right here, I can really make it so, as you can already observe happening quite clearly, the back is perfectly transparent, yet the front remains not transparent at all. Or the other way around, like saying, okay, I'm opening it up completely. Now you can see the sun suddenly shining on my face. Or the other way around, where you say, okay, I'm opening it up completely. Now you can see the sun is suddenly shining on my face. I was out with my boys recently and realized how crucial a roller function is. My son was sitting in the back and got totally dazzled by the sunlight. No, the sun blinded my eyes, and then I had the roller function in my car. But if you don't have it, that can become a problem. You can already see how silly it looks now. Half shadow, half light. Plus it's bothersome too. And you can simply pull it shut like that. You can say, I want it open at the front. But the passengers in the back, because they're the kiddies, should have it milky. So they're not dazzled. Or you press again and it's completely milky. Look at my face. Bam. You see that? The difference. I just don't have that edge of light on my face anymore. And that is a really, really cool feature, isn't it? It's a really, really cool feature indeed. And that's a really very cool feature, isn't it? That's a truly, really, really cool feature indeed. So, okay, interior quality feel. You've got this covered in leather with contrasting stitching, but it's dependent on the edition. You have here again this strip with ambient lighting in it, which I also find very beautiful. I also find the door very beautiful because above all, the strip that runs across the front is mirrored here as well. And it's got this attractive matte finish, which looks really very good. No piano black or any of that other stuff. Again, this fade with the ambient lighting, this right here, is completely soft, really nice and soft, stretchy soft, just as it should be. A lovely door handle. Thank you, Renault, for tactile mirror buttons, which are becoming extinct. Thank you also for accenting it with small metal strips, so it doesn't look like cheap plastic, like in the BMW i5, which I always criticize. And then, naturally, of course, the distinct color differentiation of the armrest here stands out from the rest. It looks very chic too, but it also depends on which edition you choose, because with other editions, Iconic, for example, you get this in blue inside. With other editions, like the Iconic, for instance, you have this in blue inside. That's felt, which I also really appreciate because things don't rattle as much in it. Really cool. This here is plastic. Okay, but in this vehicle class, my goodness, what do you expect? I really don't want to complain here. The rest of the appearance is truly top-notch. We should take another look at the seats. Oh, here's my Carmania cap. I'll just put that aside. By the way, it's velour. You'll find it in the online store, but there's no velour here. It's all fabric. It's such a very beautiful, feels good, kind of a rough fabric with partial leather applications on the sides. I really think it looks very good for taller people, adjustable in height without a button press. with the headrest. That's very, very good. Can you then place it down here again, just like that? And you have ISOFIX points here. Also perfect for families with 3 very much required car seats, much like us. You really can do this here quite easily. That's really, really good. Electric adjustable seats aren't necessarily a given either. That's only available from a certain edition onwards. And the problem is, if you want to do this down here, then wearing a watch, you reach this plastic strip and could scratch your watch. So I can't reach it. Unfortunately, it's placed poorly. Perhaps that should have been done here somehow. That would have personally been a bit more to my advantage. Perhaps that should have been done here somehow. That would have personally played into my hands a bit more. But this is nitpicking at a high level. So it's indeed a very beautiful interior. I really like it a lot. Everything's very tidy. Sure, a horizontal display might be cooler than a vertical one, but that's just the philosophy here. Then, a wireless tray for the phone with 2 pegs to prevent it from falling when accelerating. Also wrapped in leather, faux leather of course, contrast stitching, then down here, lots of space. As you can see, I've put a few things in here. Sadly, just a cup holder. Indeed, that's a criticism, for where should the passenger put their drink? Yes, okay, but it's also poorly accessible here. Just like this, because this edge actually bothers me, which is also covered with a bit too much plastic for my taste. So this is rather unappealing plastic, you know. You have here another quite large surface inside. Right here, and you've got this plastic again. Why couldn't they have covered it all with this in the first place? By the way, the only really major criticism, which I'll get to in a moment, but first, this for USB-C, the access, I find it very good that it was designed this way so you don't damage the cable by pressing too hard. The critique is, this key looks like it's from a 1988 Buick. Firstly, in terms of size. Secondly, the buttons. Looks cheap, it's a huge clump, it's big, it's not pretty. So these buttons, I don't know what Renault was thinking with this thing here. Indeed, the keys of the Renault Megane from 14 years ago were actually nicer and more delicate. That is essentially my only critique at this particular point. So, that is really it for the front interior here, actually. What I wanted to show you is this right here, this material specifically. This is felt. So it's not that unsightly material you usually get. Actually, the keys for the Renault Megane were prettier and more delicate 14 years ago. That really is my sole criticism at this current moment. So, that essentially is all from the front interior view. What I wanted to show you is this up here, specifically this material. This is felt, so it's not that unattractive material you usually get. It's not velour either. We've got a grab handle even for the driver and for the passenger too. And of course in the back as well. It's not a given. And now, I invite you to probably the most spacious spot in this class behind the driver, who in this case is 1.88 meters tall and has adjusted the seat for himself. Folks, now you're probably not going to stop being amazed. My goodness. And let's just sit down in it. And then you have here these seat tabs, your cell phone, your wallet, and down here, whatever, T&E magazine, or any other stuff that you can put in and read comfortably. Goodness. Now let's eagerly hop in, and then you have this thing here. Timo, the publisher, will be delighted. That's where my articles always appear after all. All things closely related to electromobility, you can easily order for just the cost of shipping and also subscribe. Timo, the editor, will be thrilled. That's where my articles always appear after all. Now I don't have it with me. I'm here by plane now. So folks, this legroom though. Look at this moment, everyone. Sitting right here, currently at 6'2", and I'm not equipped with slender thighs. Behind me even, in this kind of space, you won't find even in an Audi Q7. I mean, if you look at it now, that's almost 2 car Maniac fists worth of space you've got here. That's completely insane, right? Which 4.47 M car actually allows you to sit just like this, and then you still get a spacious 545-liter trunk? That's insane. And if you look up here now, you can see the sun. I do not really know. This is, so to speak, quite the milky version. And I didn't want to keep from showing you this, setting it up now. So sitting back here is really, really comfortable. I even have space above me. Not as much as in the front, but definitely still good. With the grab handles, as I said, tip-top. We also have right here a really nice and elegantly designed center armrest that looks exactly like this. Look here. Luxury greets us warmly. It's not about plastic holders, but having 2 cup holders, which is quite nice. We've got a very comfortable and truly nice center armrest right here, looking precisely just like this. Check this out. Talk about premium vibes. Right here, okay, maybe not with these plastic holders, but having 2 cup holders, I find that really nice. Then you can open this up. You've got a large compartment with felt inside. And here you have this metal trim. Here the leather. Here some piano finish. So it has a really high quality user experience. And the ISOFIX points, I find that very good too. Though I have to make some room first, you have them just like this. Flip it open, bam, track immediately begins to play. It's the easiest method. So, not for nothing do I say Renault knows currently, in my opinion, the very best in this class, how to create a car for the masses in every respect, my dear friends. So, now we need to drive it, because that, of course, is the other half of the deal. When a car begins moving like this, right as I am starting driving, with paddle shifters just positioned behind the steering wheel, it already scores several significant points with me. I don't know how important you find it that the recuperation can be adjusted with the paddles here, but I think it's great. Now I'm pulling the Regan button, it's slowing me down slightly. I don't have to do anything with the brake pedal, can still swerve here. Taking out the recirculation now, because now I really have to go back to driving uphill. I really enjoy playing with it, but it might not be for everyone. I think that's awesome. And because of that, it's already a huge plus. Then, of course, the Google Maps navigation. That's just absolutely the icing on the cake. Par excellence. I have noticed it's been quite unusually quiet right now. Now, I don't really notice the road environment noises. What I do hear, though, is this pedestrian sound, which actually kind of annoys me because it does hum quite loudly. I don't actually notice the noises coming from the road. However, what I do hear is this very specific pedestrian sound, which, to be honest, annoys me quite a bit because it tends to hum remarkably loudly. Generally, I am not really a big fan at all of those extremely irritating and annoying beeping sounds when opening the trunk, reversing and stuff like that, honestly. All this continuous beeping, stuff similar to that just really annoys me. I don't even know if you can actually manage to turn it off. That would have indeed caught my interest. Maybe with driver assistance or comfort. Let's see. Nope. Not really. Anyway, so the suspension is it has a short wheelbase, this car. That's why you notice this a bit. But I wouldn't say it has an uncomfortable ride. Not at all, really. It feels more sporty, in fact. That's one way to describe it. What's not so sporty, and I'm curious to see how it'll be later on the highway, is the low end. Start walking, because by the time it actually comes, it takes ages, and then it doesn't come with much urgency either. Now, in brackets, this won't bother most people who buy this car. The Renault customer is a very specific customer. It's not an RS or anything like that. Most people don't mind. I find it perfectly fine too. But I am quite a dynamic driver, and I do enjoy accelerating out somewhere or have to, especially when I'm speeding up at a T-junction onto a country road. Then it's pretty cool when the car gets a bit of kick from the back. It has plenty of power, 217 horsepower and 300 Newton meters of torque. But these 7.9 seconds from 0 to 100 feel exactly like 7.9 seconds from 0 to 100. Sometimes, the subjective perception is different from what's on paper. That's really the actual situation here. So, down below, it's somewhat possibly to safeguard something vital in the drivetrain system. Just a tad. You can tell it's slightly dialed back because I know what 217 electric horsepower feels like. Watch out. And he's scraping his hooves a bit. So, despite not taking off that strongly, he scrapes his hooves first before he realizes, okay, now I'm dialing back the power a bit. And that's why I'm not a fan of front-wheel drives. Because in winter, on wet or icy conditions, let's not even start, you obviously have the problem that the front, you've got that torque instantly, even if the 300 Newton meters aren't brutal, but it's quite substantial. And then on the front tires, you have more tire wear on the front. With such a car, I might have even wished for all-wheel drive. With such a significantly large battery, they really could have managed to do that, or at least implemented a rear-wheel drive. How's that in terms of dynamics? Whoa, it's taking off now. It felt like it just lifted off like a hovercraft. And I'd lose any contact with the road through the tires, kind of like that, even though we're in comfort mode. And you could hear once again he's champing at the bit. When we go over these bumps, you really do start to feel quite a bit of the underlying harshness, actually. Yeah, you do notice that a bit. However, when driving over regular bumps on the road, it's quite a tremendously pleasant experience. What I also find pleasant is the warning tone for exceeding the speed. This is a 30 zone, I'm driving 33. And it beeps so subtly, doesn't bother you or get on your nerves and says, there's a new EU regulation, I have to beep if you're going 1 km/h over. He must, yet he accomplishes it with utmost elegance. And that, indeed, I find beautiful. Because amusingly, this is the first car where I don't really feel the need to turn it off, since it's so subtle. Of course, it would be cool if I could deactivate it right here, just like with Mercedes, with the newer models, by pressing on the navigation, on a little symbol, or even with the mute button. Not possible at this moment, okay? You can likely park it somewhere though, but it's really not bothering much at all. Not possible now. Okay, you can probably park it somewhere, but it really isn't bothersome. Not at all. I find it incredibly elegant, the way it's decided to still go ahead and make it for the customers. Not annoying the customer too much, really, at most. Drives quite well. Really like it a lot. One thing I notice, which actually bothers me, and it's the only one, is that my knee, unfortunately, presses right against the console of this wireless charging station for the phone. And that's right at the transition between the knee, between the outer side of the knee and the shin bone, and that's just bone, you don't have any muscles there. And it really presses against this edge, and that bothers me a bit because you're tilting your leg against it. Hold straight, okay? But no one rides with legs so straight like a boy. So you just want to tilt your leg on a long drive, and it bugs me that I can't do that without touching this. I really have no clue how tiny my legs would have to be for me not to be able to touch that thing. So either there should be nothing here, or I don't know, it's kind of that actually bothers me. What I notice is if the middle headrest were up, can you actually raise it? No, I don't think you actually can you? But even so, I have very limited visibility to the back, especially if there were 3 people sitting there right now. And that's where the digital mirror proves quite useful. You don't even need to adjust it, it's already perfect. Looks really good. I can see the seat behind us perfectly, even more perfectly, because I can see the car completely through the camera. This way, I only see everything from the windshield up. So, a digital rearview mirror, if you have one, isn't bad, especially if you can switch to a regular mirror too. And with the blind, I find it really cool that now, when we naturally have the sun overhead around noon, it doesn't blast directly onto my bald head. That's indeed a problem, as I've mentioned, with cars without a roller blind. Especially for people with bald heads, it's really uncomfortable. And of course, for the accompanying children. That's really a nice, smooth thing, man. They really did a good job on that one. The seats in this vehicle are very comfortable, indeed exceptionally comfortable. However, I do wish I had the ability to adjust the specific angle of the seat for my personal comfort. Because right now it's like the seat is like this and my legs are like this. I indeed have really long legs, and the distance from the edge of the chair to the back of my knee is substantially quite significant, making comfort a bit challenging. And, well, I don't have an attachment off the top third of my thigh. It's not that bad as to limit my comfort, but I would like to point out these are matters of the seating position. I've shown it for you as well. This is what it looks like at 6'2". You could also be 6'5" and still have enough headrest in case someone hits you from the back so that your neck won't snap backwards. Yeah, Renault, you really did a cool job on it. Now, I'm just curious to see how it performs on the highway. One thing I wanted to try out, that's the turning circle. It's at 1090 meters, which isn't too small, given that the car is only 447 meters long. Then the question is, how does it feel? What do you really feel when turning the steering wheel? And that's exactly what I want to try out now. Let's say I've taken a wrong turn, I want to go in a different direction or whatever, then there's this bay here, then I would already expect to be able to turn around. Wait, let's do that. Yes, now it's starting to fly. If you're not like me, which most aren't, especially those who drive electric cars, that's perfectly fine. Because Q acceleration lane or top speed, and of course the assistance systems, and obviously the acoustics, and even the consumption to some extent. We've got to take a look at that too. So he doesn't just rake in his laurels for nothing, because maybe he's not that great, or maybe he's really excellent. Let's check that out. Fun fact. Did you know that with the consumption I've just managed at 15.6 kilowatt hours, we covered 10 kilometers in the city? In the end, it goes up to 557 kilometers in everyday use. That's what I measured at an outside temperature of 16 degrees. And that's remarkably impressive, because essentially it takes the average Joe, the typical German who regularly commutes to work, nearly almost 2 whole weeks of dedicated effort to work, which is quite a substantial amount of time. And even if you park on the street and don't have a home charging option, you only need to hit the charging station every 10 days. And with that, this car picks up people in the connection between efficiency and battery size who might not want an electric vehicle because they don't want to go to the charging station every 2-3 days. You don't have to worry about that here, because over 500 kilometers is pretty brutal, and let it be 400 or 450 in winter. Hey, So that should suffice for the average German, right? Now let's hit the highway. So at 60 km/h, let's now take a gentle and leisurely stroll. In the comfort mode setting, of course. 70? Wow. Those impressive 217 horsepower really dance, don't they? Not bad at all, wouldn't you agree? I was honestly taken aback by how swiftly it accelerated onto the highway, because earlier it somehow didn't feel that way. He definitely handled that well up top. I mean, he really nailed it. I was genuinely stunned. You might have noticed just now. Yes, so highway capabilities. I still find the way to operate the assistance systems right here on the steering wheel really awesome. I am really quite deeply into this. And now I would absolutely love to try out the steering assist feature because, well, now we've successfully got it in. Because you have here, depending on the specific edition, this package, this driver's package. Now, of course, you can add that on. If you say, for example, you want the Techno and not the Iconic, or not. This Alpine edition, Esprit, like Esprit Alpine, then you have to purchase that separately. Costs money. How does it steer? It steers well. Handles the bumps really smoothly. It's a great car for the highway. And what strikes me, we're driving at 130 km/h, and even here, I find the acoustics to be quite good already. Costs money. How does it steer? It steers well. Handles the bumps very nicely. It's great for highway driving. And what I notice, we're going at 130 km/h, and even here, I find the acoustics quite good. I hear a bit of wind, the rear view mirrors are really plate-sized, and that's probably unavoidable, but still top-notch. Still, the edge of the phone holder against my knee bothers me, unfortunately. No matter how I desperately wish to comfortably lounge my leg, I unfortunately seem to consistently have this rather small, yet annoying issue. But look at how well it steers, and above all, how long it lets me do this hands-off. Now he says, keep your hands on the wheel. It's capacitive, so you don't need torque on the wheel. Just a brief touch, and it knows. I've got this amazing navigation system right in the center here. And to really get a good look at it, I'm going to take it all the way out. Now we've finally got our hands on it, because depending on the specific edition chosen, this particular package we're talking about, this Essential Drivers package. Now, of course, you can add that on. If, for example, you say you'd like the Techno instead of the Iconic, or not. The Alpine edition, Esprit, so Esprit Alpine, then you'll have to purchase that additionally. Cost money. How does it steer? It steers well. Handles the bumps really well. It's extremely great for highway driving. At 130 km/h, even in this situation, the acoustics are indeed quite good. I'm hearing a bit of wind. The rear view mirrors are indeed plate-sized, and that's probably unavoidable, but still top-notch. Unfortunately, the edge of the phone holder still bothers my knee. No matter how much I really wish to comfortably lounge around with my leg, I unfortunately still have this little persistent issue. But look at how well it steers, and especially how long it lets me do this, in a hands-off way. Now he says, keep your hands on the wheel. It's capacitive, so you don't need torque on the wheel, just a brief touch, and it knows. You have the kids in the back, and they would wake up if suddenly the sun shone directly on their faces. And I don't feel it. That's quite unique with trips, with this battery size. You've got the children situated in the back, and they would certainly wake up if the sun were to suddenly shine directly right in their faces. He's checking his stuff here, and still I have a full-fledged navigation right here and don't have to say, hey, click, 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 back, click away, I need the nav. That happens sometimes when you say, okay, there's a traffic jam, I need to take this exit, do I take it, yes or no? All right, you obviously can't do here what you're able to do there, which is, when this situation arises, deciding if you'll take this exit or if the detour is too big. This zooming in and out so quickly, or at all, obviously you can't do that here now. But you see perfectly which sign, speed limit, it reads the sign super well. Now, for instance, I see I've got this. Light edge on my head again. He suddenly came into our radar range. The car didn't just slow down stupidly, but likely noticed by passing next to us, all right, he's moving a bit faster. And if I merge behind him now, I don't have to totally drop anchor. Awesome, 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 awesome. That's an assistance system of upper class level. So that's what a BMW does now in steering. Whose assistance systems are currently the best on the market, I believe, no better either. Look at how he's steering us. It's like a dream. And the cool thing is, he doesn't even need lane guidance markings, but can also orient by curbstones and the like on the right. Orient yourself, these big ground waves we're riding, they are soft. It's indeed very comfortable here. It is actually quite fun, isn't it? What's our current altitude at this moment? We'll turn around and check again. Now we're at 65 meters. That's top-notch, no doubt. However, there's a slight yet noticeable whistling sound coming from the motor. That is truly amazing. Sign recognition, how exactly does it manage to do that? 100. But it doesn't really slow us down at all, surprisingly. We'll have to do that ourselves then. So, what's our consumption looking like on this round? Now, on this relatively short stretch, we've consumed 24.8 kilowatt hours. I don't have to drop anchor big time. Awesome, 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 awesome. This Google system too, how quickly it just operates. This is without a doubt so incredibly awesome. I mean, truly, you wouldn't ever want anything else anymore, really. Whose assistance systems are currently the best on the market, I think aren't better either. Look at how he guides us. It's like a dream. And the amazing part is, he doesn't even need lane markings. He can also navigate using curbs and such on the right. Orient. These big ground waves we're riding, they're soft. So you know, that's exactly what I'm talking about. What's really needed here. 2. Drive an electric car with absolutely no stress whatsoever. And we essentially just did accelerate onto the highway moments ago in the comfort mode and not in the sports mode. And I was quite impressed by that. I was a bit disappointed at the beginning when I accelerated the car at the lower range because I thought, wow, it's kind of sluggish. But up top, we've got a totally different length. How does it actually handle in the curve? It's drivable. So you can also dynamically take a turn, but what I notice is, what truly hurts is when you are driving very dynamically and fast into a turn, directly facing whatever comes next. Your whole weight is resting right on the knee, on this particularly sharp edge. So it actually bothers me more and more, unfortunately. This edge right here, it's also very harsh, despite being covered with faux leather. That's really annoying indeed. So when you drive dynamically into this curved direction, you brace yourself with your knee. Can we possibly go that way? Come on, let's quickly recalculate. Then I'll set a different destination towards Regensburg. Zap over, bam, who does that? So let's switch to sport mode now. The display's a bit cluttered, in my opinion. And let's hit the highway here. The restrictions are lifted anyway. And I was quite impressed with that. I was a bit disappointed at the beginning when I accelerated the car at low speeds because I thought, wow, it feels somewhat sluggish. Great, really good driving feeling. Awesome, truly. So, we're resetting here once again. But on the top, we have a totally different length. So how does it actually handle in the curves? One can drive it. So you can also take a turn dynamically, which however catches my attention. By the way, top speed, which we haven't covered yet, is capped at 150 for the smaller battery option of 60 kilowatts. So it actually bothers me more and more, unfortunately. This edge here, it's also very hard, even though it's covered with faux leather. That's really annoying. So when you drive dynamically into that curved direction, you're bracing yourself with your knee. So for me, there's either something missing here or there should be a center console. But I am German after all, and I primarily make videos for Germans as well as for my dear Austrians and Swiss. They don't care about that, but we Germans do indeed. Yes, 180 would have at least been a nice gesture, so it's not 170. But yes, the car impresses so much in the other categories that I really overlook that. And I also have to admit, you can't usually drive that fast anyway. But yes, the car impresses so significantly in the other categories that I really tend to overlook that small flaw. And I must quite honestly admit, you usually can't drive that fast anyway. And for people like me who really drive long distances and need to be very fast, such a car is actually not the right choice. Because I need a bigger battery again. Yesterday I had to get up at 6. I woke up, shot a video on Mercedes, EQS update, electric G-Class, then got into the car, had to drive from Graz to Munich and catch the flight, who flies from Munich to Paris, from Paris to Malaga, and had to race against time. And with this one at 1:70, Renault said, we don't care about top speed. Nobody in Europe does either. You're absolutely right. In the end, it's just a German issue. But I am German, and I mostly make videos for Germans, as well as for my beloved Austrians and Swiss. And those are the moments when it's awesome that I have a high top speed.
Even hitting over 200 sometimes. But for the average Joe, I totally get it. It's a completely irrelevant matter.
Too disappointing. So, my dear friends, what we haven't yet discussed, and what I also consider an essential part of the final conclusion, is indeed also the Type 2 charging, where the car also excels significantly. The Renault Scenic, indeed, falls among those exceptional vehicles meticulously designed to draw up to 22 kilowatt as a standard with a Type 2 connection, ensuring efficient and fast charging capabilities for users. And it's truly fantastic, because in natural everyday life you find yourself drawn to those urban electric vehicle charging stations. That's like the natural, absolutely perfect habitat for such a car, or indeed any car in general, a fitting environment. Who flies Munich to Paris, Paris to Malaga, must keep to a tight schedule. And those are the moments when it's awesome that I have a high top speed. Even topping 200 once in a while. But I completely see, for the average consumer, it's utterly irrelevant. Even hitting over 200 once in a while. But for the average Joe, I totally get it, it's a completely irrelevant matter. And you can't be so small that it doesn't bother you. Too unfortunate. So, all of my dear friends, what we have not yet thoroughly discussed, and what I also regard as a critical part of our final conclusion, is indeed the Type 2 charging method, where the vehicle also exceptionally excels. And that for the same money in the end. So, as mentioned, it's about a standard that should have been set for this car a long time ago. And that's absolutely fantastic, because when you drive around in your normal everyday life, you always aim for the convenient city charging stations. And for the same money in the end. So, as mentioned, it's about a standard that should have been set long ago for this car. The charging flap is positioned here at the front, which I find quite practical, especially when you're parking in urban areas. You see, the charging station is always right here, so you don't have to drag the cable over the hood. And with a standard 22 kilowatt, it means you can recharge the large battery from completely empty to full in just about 4.5 hours. That's great for appointments in the city. That's fantastic if you have Type 2 chargers at work. This red with that slight orange tint, there we see it again, a bit from a distance. Right next to it, the grey one. By now, I actually might even prefer the red one. I'm a big fan of red anyway. White, as I said, and in total, well, 7 paint colors. Driver assistance systems, I wouldn't change a thing about them. But you can plug it in right here, and you also won't be obstructing any cyclists who, of course, pass by the car on the side. Driver assistance systems, I wouldn't change anything about them. It handles well, the acoustics are excellent on the highway, it has good acceleration at higher speeds in the end, even if not at lower ones, but at higher speeds it really picks up. I'm a big fan of red anyway. White, as I mentioned, and a total of, well, 7 paint colors. For me, it's crystal clear, Renault has bet on the right horse, or horses indeed, but it doesn't always have to be. Bigger, farther, faster, better. Apart from compensating with the battery size for what can't be changed physically, if you truly want range and it's your main car and you're driving longer distances on the highway, you'll need an 87 kilowatt-hour battery. But otherwise, with 217 horsepower, just the right amount of power, and for those who don't even need that, 160 horsepower, so this selection, then packing so much space for passengers in the back into a relatively small body. Once with the Google operating system. Then, offering a choice of 2 battery sizes and the overall implementation, including everything that comes with it, is, I think, top-notch. That is simply undeniably, truly, absolutely top-notch with a very impressively huge trunk. What more could you want? So even if it's not a van or minivan anymore, you'll have absolutely no family issues with it. And for most people who buy a car or an electric car, that's not even their main concern. And Renault got it exactly right. Even if it's not exactly a game changer for people like me, because I enjoy driving dynamically, but it need not always be. Higher, further, faster, better. With battery size, you compensate for what can't be done differently, physically, if you want range and drive long on the highway. You just need an 87 kilowatt-hour battery. But otherwise, with 217 horsepower, exactly the right power. And for those who don't even need that, 160 horsepower. So, this selection, then to pack so much space for the passengers in the back into a relatively small body. It's genuinely top-notch, offering an exceptionally spacious and quite massive trunk. What more could you want? So even if it's no longer a van or minivan, you'll have absolutely no problems with it as a family. If you're a family of 4, it's perfect for a holiday trip. And all that for under 50,000 euros. If you go for the iconic, meaning the highest trim level, and basically have everything on board that you need. What you also need, of course, are things like saving money. That's why, below to IONT, there's the link, so at least if you don't drive a Renault, because Renault, as mentioned, doesn't have an interface for it, it's not about the nice weather, and it's not about the hotel and such, which many might think would make one speak more favorably about a car. So I don't really need it that much. And then there's also the fact that my journey here was quite adventurous and honestly pretty awful. I would have preferred to do it all in Germany, not least because of the weather being nice, clear, and the people. Fuel consumption measurement on the highway is, of course, much easier for me. My partner, Helvetia Berner, a vehicle appraisal office, if you ever have an accident, is also involved to get the most out of it for you. And all for under 50,000 euros. If you go for the iconic, which is the top trim, and pretty much have everything on board that you need. On German highways here, I've calculated 25 kilowatt hours. From what I could drive, it was topographically balanced, but didn't cover much distance. Constantly at 130, which, as you know, you often can't even do, even in Germany. So, this is the worst case scenario at this speed because you do have to brake from time to time. Save a simple 10 cents per kilowatt hour while charging. E-car insurance, I've got that for you down below. My partner, Helvetia Berner Car Expert Office, if you ever have an accident, is also involved in getting the most out of it for you. It was a steady 130, which, as you know, you usually can't even do, not even in Germany. It's not about the nice weather, and it's not about the hotel and such, which many might think is why one speaks more favorably about a car. So I don't really need it that much. And then there's the fact that my journey here was quite adventurous and, to be honest, pretty awful. Are you just as thrilled as I am? Based on the tested parameters, do you also feel that this is exactly what the market needs? Right on point? Drop it in the comments for me, and then I'll see you next time. Please don't forget to subscribe to the channel. That really makes me happy. And then, until the days when, yes, the next video is coming up again. It was a steady 130, which you often can't even do, even in Germany. Are you just as thrilled as I am? Based on the tested parameters, do you also feel that it's exactly on point, just what the market needs? Drop it in the comments, and then we'll see you next time. Please don't forget to subscribe to the channel. It really makes me happy.